was a time when if you heard the word YouTube, you would immediately think Casey Neistat.
Casey Neistat.
Casey Neistat.
Casey Neistat.
Casey Neistat!
You know who Casey Neistat is, right?
My name's Casey Neistat.
Casey Neistat forever changed the platform, setting a new bar for what it means to make a YouTube video.
You're about to say something important. You want to zoom in to really get the audience engaged.
Vlogging used to be something mundane, focused on the lives of the subject with almost no focus on the cinematography, the aesthetics of the video itself. Then daily vlogging became a thing. Vloggers typically using simple point-and-shoot cameras, speaking to their audience through the lens and giving them a glimpse into their daily lives. Sometimes that life needing a bit, or quite a bit, of fabrication. But when Casey Neistat began his vlog in 2015, it completely changed YouTube as a platform. Casey comes from a background in filmmaking, specifically in producing high-budget commercials for J.Crew, Nike, and Mercedes-Benz, and even making more journalistic productions for the New York Times. So when he began his daily vlog, he brought his expertise in filmmaking and storytelling to a medium that had yet to see such a venture.
I'm 34 years old and I've never had so much going on in my life. I got married like a year ago, had a kid 3 months ago. My other kid, Owen, he's driving now. I've been traveling a lot with and without the family. Yes, I'm starting a proper daily vlog. I'm psyched. So this is the first vlog entry.
Soon skyrocketing to a level of notoriety on the platform, undeniably becoming the king of vlogs.
So it's kind of a bummer. No one showed up to the meetup.
But then he stopped, moving to Los Angeles to never be heard from again, except when he felt the need to give some brain-dead political take.
Look at this guy. Look at the guy in red. Check out the hair. That's me in Israel, I think in Jerusalem, in 2005. If you're Jewish, you get to go on this free trip called Birthright Israel. It's fun. It's like summer camp. You go to Israel with a bunch of people your age and you get to do cool stuff and learn. It's like a field trip. It's great.
Casey Neistat has since moved back to New York City and has begun posting to YouTube again, this time much more infrequently. And while I've been a fan of his return, watching nearly all of his uploads, even the more cringe ones, he did something recently that has completely shifted the way I see Casey Neistat, as well as past actions throughout his career that are now seen through a less than favorable lens. To the point that I can no longer support him by any means of the word. Today's broadcast is brought to you by viewers like you. Become a member today and unlock exclusive content at patreon.com/NorthstarRadio. This is me in 2014, the year I discovered Casey Neistat, 1 year before he began his daily vlog. I have a not so unique connection to Casey Neistat that makes me feel as though I have the authority to make such a video. I was obsessed with Casey Neistat. The year I discovered Casey, I had already been making videos on YouTube, but quickly shifted my style entirely, blatantly copying the Neistat style like everyone else. And I say Neistat and not Casey Neistat because Casey's first big break was not by himself, but rather with his big brother, Van Neistat, who worked on an HBO show with Casey that unfortunately didn't get picked up for a second season. Van Neistat is a small piece of this greater Neistat puzzle, so remember his name. Casey Neistat frequently brings up his coming to fame story, how he grew up in New England, was a teenager at the time of his son's birth.
After 3 months there, my girlfriend got pregnant. So we moved back to Connecticut. I dropped out of high school.
All the way to his move to New York City, where he was basically homeless for a few weeks.
I moved to New York City on June 4th, 2001. Literally exactly on June 4th, 2001. When I moved here, I had a 3-month sublet, so I had a place to stay for 3 months. After those 3 months, I moved into a friend's couch that was in the financial district that was literally a half a block from the Twin Towers.
Until maxing out multiple credit cards to purchase an iMac, where he eventually made a few bucks off his first video project.
This was the first ever computer ever that I ever edited video on, ever. The year was 2000. Y2K had just passed, the dot-com bubble had burst, the Concorde crashed in France, Vladimir Putin had just been voted in, and Bill Clinton was about to leave office. That was the year I got this thing. This is an iMac DV, and this was the first machine to ship with iMovie on it, iMovie version 1.0. At the time, I was washing dishes for a living, but when I first played with this thing, I was like, I have to have it, and I maxed out my credit card and got one.
Ah, the classic good old American pick yourself up by your bootstraps story. Don't you just love capitalism? Except it seems like now that Casey Neistat has finally achieved fame and financial stability, he no longer looks fondly on those simply trying to get by in this crazy fend for yourself by any means necessary late-stage capitalist system. Moving to Los Angeles in 2019 and not long after experiencing capitalism up close and personal, tweeting this after several of his cars were broken into. So our cars got robbed this morning because Los Angeles is a crime-riddled third-world shithole of a city. But tremendous appreciation and gratitude to the hardworking officers at the LAPD, who not only arrested the motherfucker, but they got all of our stolen goods back. Now there's a lot to break down here, but can we first give props to Seth Rogen for ripping this loud New Yorker a new one? Dude, I've lived here for over 20 years. You're nuts. It's lovely here. Don't leave anything valuable in it. It's called living in a big city. Coming from a guy who donated to bail out protesters from right here in Minneapolis because of the George Floyd protests, and more recently has criticized the idea of a Jewish ethno-state in the Middle East, and has reflected on his education on Israel growing up, saying that they forgot to include the facts. Alright, Seth Rogen, this NSR-branded spliff is getting lit up in your honor. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked. This tweet from Casey Neistat got quite a bit of attention. Probably in part due to the fact that he wrote it not long after Donald Trump called Haiti and several African countries shithole countries. This person saying, "Can't imagine having millions to my name and getting worked up enough about petty theft to call LA a shithole and thank the police in the same breath." And this is where the police come into play. Casey Neistat is a New Yorker through and through, and something every New Yorker is confronted with on a daily basis is the fact that they live in a police state run by the stinkiest gang in all of America, followed closely behind by the LA Sheriff's Department, the NYPD.
We're taking existing technology, cameras, being able to communicate with people, and we're placing it on wheels.
Behold the NYPD's newest Crime Stopper, K5 Autonomous.
The NYPD is an incredibly infamous police department for both their vast history of excessive force over petty crimes.
New developments tonight in the police shooting at a subway in Brooklyn yesterday. 2 cops firing their weapons at a fare jumping man who authorities say used a knife to try to attack the officers. But in the process, 2 passengers were shot, one of them critically, and one of the cops was also hit. How that happened, we still don't know.
But are even more infamous for their inability to do their job when it matters most.
The officer attempted to get a fire extinguisher to douse the flame. And so I'm not going to speak more on that particular issue.
Yet time and time again, Casey Neistat has made a concerted effort to do soft propaganda for the NYPD, frequently featuring them in his elaborate videos and going out of his way to celebrate and thank them for their supposed bravery.
There's the man. What up, Rich? Rich, what do you think of the new one wheel? It's nice, right? Place one day, man.
I'm specifically talking about this video where Casey rips on a cop for driving a tiny police car, basically going apeshit because he believes the NYPD are a powerful force in the city and need to drive a big car in order to be respected as a police force. I mean, what does he want the cops to drive around in? Tanks? Oh, right.
What is this car? It's a smart car. Man, what do you do? Where's your NYPD? Where's the dignity, man? That's the wimpiest car I've ever seen. Look at this thing. Look at the little lights. It's ridiculous.
Dear NYPD, what were you thinking when you bought these things? How is anyone supposed to respect a police force that drives around in little go-karts?
Look at this tiny little car. What do you think of this thing?
Yo, this thing is crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
Do you think they had to leave their dignity at the police station because they couldn't fit it in the car? What do you think of that cop car?
It's little. I wouldn't want to ride in it.
Officer, is it embarrassing driving around in that go-kart? The poor guy. Stay safe, little buddy.
Stay safe, little buddy.
Watch out for potholes. Wouldn't want to lose you.
Casey Neistat revolutionized the daily vlog. However, he didn't come up with the concept by any means. In fact, one particular Viner turned YouTuber began his daily vlog a mere month before Casey Neistat, suggesting that Casey was quite inspired by this person's venture into daily vlogging.
This is my first vlog. I don't know how long this is gonna last, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna try vlogging maybe every other day, every day, who knows? But I'm gonna do it, so subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hey, this is my first vlog, man. Alright, let's just start vlogging. What a dick.
In 2022, Casey Neistat released his documentary, Under the Influence, at South by Southwest. A film about the rise and fall of the biggest YouTuber in the world whose feel-good videos masked the dark and reckless new ethos of online celebrity culture. The film received massive praise from its audience, and after being nominated for the Golden Starfish Award at the Hamptons International Film Festival, it's never been seen again. And from the looks of it, Casey Neistat may be holding off on the film's public release in order to protect the image of his new friend, David Dobrik.
Casey FaceTimed me, and that's why I sued David, because I saw what David said about me and how he really felt. And I was like, no fucking way. Like, my heart dropped. I thought I was like best friends with this kid.
Yeah.
And this is how he talks about me behind my back.
Yeah.
It's not even behind my back. It's in a documentary that'll be out in a year.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But the statute of limitations would have been up. If I hadn't seen that clip, I would have never got to sue.
Yeah.
So thank you, Casey, for doing that. But also, kind of fuck you, Casey, right now, because he said that he's not releasing his documentary, that you sat down with a girl that was assaulted and spoke to you about her most traumatic moment of her life for days, weeks, and you're gonna bury the story to protect this kid that you openly admitted. Casey fucking sat for weeks interviewing her, and now he said that he thinks that David was the best comedian on YouTube in history. That was the funniest part of the interview right there.
Between the filming of this documentary, its subsequent film festival release, and to this day, David Dobrik has faced quite a bit of controversy. And I'm not talking about problematic age gaps of 2 years, I'm talking real criminal shit. And it seems as though that's what this film explores. That is sexual assault. But not long after, he did it again.
I had an idea to pull the prank on him.
Maybe I'll have some new friends that, you know, will support me in my ventures moving forward, and I made the decision to just kind of go along with it.
But instead of David himself apologizing or even just speaking about it publicly in any way, he had one of his employees, Scotty Sire, make a video shitting on Seth and defending Big Daddy himself, David Dobrik.
What's up, guys? I am totally sick of seeing my friends' names get dragged through the mud because of false allegations and lies and just things that aren't true, so I'm going to address some of those allegations and defend my friends. They haven't said anything because typically the Vlog Squad does not address rumors and lies and gossip because it platforms the person telling the lies, draws attention to it, and we know who we are, we know our character, we know we're good people, and we know it's not true, but this has gotten to a point where it's such a serious accusation that it needs to be addressed. Everybody makes mistakes. I am not an angel. I've definitely made mistakes myself, and all we can hope for when we make mistakes is to learn and grow from those mistakes. That being said, telling a lie is a mistake itself, and there's been a lot of that going around. First of all, David's a great person, Jason's a great person. In fact, they're both fantastic people. David doesn't have a mean bone in his body. He's so nice. When someone does something that really upsets him, he gets disappointed instead of angry.
But then, can you believe it? Something even worse took place on camera, front and center on the David Dobrik vlog. And can you believe it's centered around someone who goes by Dirty Dom? That's such an innocent, down-to-earth name. To keep this video somewhat brief, David and his friends for hire were all hanging out and thought it would be funny to center that day's vlog around Dirty Dom, who planned on bringing several college-age girls to his apartment with the sole purpose of having sex with them.
Holy shit!
Oh, This is weird.
All the while, David was standing right outside the bedroom door recording the entire time.
Oh my god. Oh my god, I can't look in there. I'm gonna have to leave the apartment.
What if I told you that the man named Dirty Dom wasn't exactly receptive to the concept of consent? Shocker, I know. After one of these girls came out to address what took place in that bedroom all those months ago, the story blew up, leading to much online scrutiny and investigation into what took place that night.
I knew this article was coming out, but it was way more in depth, and the gravity of the accusations in this article was way more than I expected.
For the last couple of weeks now, I've been telling you guys all the stuff that's been going on with David Dobrik.
This blows everything out of the water that we've talked about.
Chief exposed Dom with regards to the essay allegations and debunked certain elements of the article that was written about the allegations. Chief said that Trisha lied in the article about Chief supplying alcohol to listen up the girls.
You said a bunch of times in your video that Trisha is the reason you're in this article. Did you read the article?
I didn't want to pay for the paywall on it.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to make any jokes. I just have a sarcastic tone. Like I want to be clear that I'm here.
Do you acknowledge that it wasn't Trisha just saying that?
Now, after listening to you guys addressing the article a bunch of times, yeah, I understand.
So you really didn't read the article, or were you joking?
No, listen, so I'll start from the top. And like I said, I'm not here to discredit the victim at all. And I want to make that clear. I'm just here to explain my side of the story. And the reason I'm even coming on here is because I genuinely feel like, there are some misunderstandings here, and we could just clear it up if we talk it out. When I first got reached out to by Insider, the reporter, immediately I was like, oh, what is this? My name in an article with Dom and sexual assault? Like, I'm going to call right away before I had the facts straight. This was 3 years ago. So, stupid move. You're right. I'll give it to you. That was dumb to call a reporter when I don't even know.
But I don't think she mischaracterized you either. So I got to stop you there a little bit, too.
I had nothing to do with the sexual assault. I had nothing to do with anything that happened inside of that bedroom. When I peeked in, it was a faked bit. And the sweaty part after was a setup shot after the next day. And I mean, that's my story. That's from 3 years ago. That's what I remember. And I can,
I think from what I can tell, I agree. I think you're a good dude. And like I said, I hope you get through this and you're okay. But
what is the goal here? Because for me, it's to try to help sexual assault victims genuinely. That's genuinely what I'm here for. And
what you're doing when you question the motives of the authors, you're basically saying that there's no article that could be about this that would be acceptable to me because they're making money.
I was just saying that if there was a paywall on it and you wanted to get those clicks through doing it this way,
dude, they had lawyers. David's lawyers were threatening them nonstop. They have.
I don't know. I don't know this stuff.
Well,
you act like I'm with David every day.
Well, it's in the article. If you would have read the article.
Okay. Ethan.
Now that right there is Jeff Wittick. Someone who was seen in that clip ironically became his next victim. After the Dirty Dom controversy, David Dobrik and the Vlog Squad planned an elaborate vlog for their big return to YouTube, with help from an excavator. And what do you think happens when you operate professional construction equipment with one hand while you hold a camera in the other, with your friend swinging on a rope tied to said machinery? Not good things. So where does Casey Neistat tie into all of this? For all I know, Casey wasn't there during the excavator incident, but it did take place during the time Casey was recording the documentary on David Dobrik. The documentary being completely upended and forced to change course, as it was originally meant to be nothing more than a puff piece on David Dobrik and the extravagant and exciting lives of internet celebrities. Casey Neistat had to make a choice. Do I release this expose on my friend David Dobrik after all this time filming and hanging out together? Or do I protect him and hide this film from the general public as a way to shield him from the well-deserved consequences of his actions? Well, Casey Neistat went on Jeff Wittick's podcast not too long ago.
I got you this present. Look at that. You didn't take it out.
You didn't have to do that.
Show what it is.
You didn't have to do that.
Because I don't know.
No, I know it's Christmas and everything.
I don't know if you're running out, but there you go. It's It's a bunch of Kool-Aid.
Yeah, but you didn't.
Because you're still drinking it, my friend.
You didn't just
You're
stop
still
here.
in the cult. You're still
You
blinded.
got these. I'm gonna put these both up.
My friend,
I'm gonna put
you
these-
still have a
I'm
little
gonna
bit
put
in
these
you.
both-
And if you didn't get blasted in the head by a crane or had sex with against your will when you were drunk, you may have different feelings. It took me a long time to stop drinking that Kool-Aid. I went through like 5 surgeries, and I was still drinking that Kool-Aid.
And upon being confronted by Jeff Wittick on his seemingly tight and protective friendship with David Dobrik, this is what he had to say.
You know, I haven't had any communication.
Yeah, I know.
With David, nor have I sought any communication with him. And when I talk about this idea of protecting him, like, no, I don't feel any desire to protect him. And what I said in that interview, and I'll still say this today, is that like the way that documentary transpired, like if I can give the whole thing in an abbreviated way, is I really was excited about telling this story of what it means to go from zero to being the biggest creator in the world. That was the story that I wanted to tell. And that's the story I wanted to like dedicate years of my life to telling. And David seemed like the perfect candidate.
He seemed like it, yeah.
He really seemed like it when I first met him, and his explosion was unlike anything I had seen. And I rode that wave, and like that tour, The Greatest Time of Your Life, was sort of the apex of that. It was like, we were going to universities, we were going to Miami, we were going to all these places, and like the way
even
people
here
would,
at 368,
that's
we
right.
felt like the Beatles.
The way
streets were
people
rumbling.
reacted to you guys was unlike anything I'd ever seen. And that was the movie that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
And then this story comes out. When you talk about drinking the juice,
yeah,
I think that I'll take that criticism, and I won't fight with you about it.
I drank the juice for the first year.
But
I kept the accent.
I push back on it,
hidden.
Jeff, because like, you know, I didn't hesitate to, you know, throw away my friendship, which I did have with him, and I should have never made that friendship with him because it made me less of a good journalist. Less of an objective journalist for sure. And then I had to tear off the friend band-aid and put on the journalist hat, and that was really hard to do. And if I had just been a journalist the whole time, maybe I wouldn't have gotten the access.
Yeah.
But it would have been more honest. Instead, I was his friend, and he was mad with me because he only saw me as a friend, and I was mad with him because of all this bullshit that I felt like was hidden.
Yeah.
And was masked. And when it came out, so you can give me shit for drinking the juice, Jeff. I'm going to take this Kool-Aid home. But I want you to sort of appreciate the fact that
start dwindling down, you know, maybe do a lower dose each day before you got to get off that stuff.
We're still talking about the juice.
Yeah.
I just push back because I would love to understand how you think it's, you know, me drinking the juice because of the fact that I've never had anything to do with the guy. And when I talk about this idea of like,
just saying things like what you did in that interview with that guy. I don't know who is that guy, because you don't do a lot of podcasts.
No, he's fantastic. His channel's fantastic. He used to work at YouTube.
He got good questions out of you.
Really good
got
questions.
You some backlash.
But was there other than
your
what we
answers?
talked about?
No, from just like saying things about you know, that he was the best comedian.
Oh, just about David stuff.
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah,
stuff.
so like, you know,
and you not releasing the doc for the sole purpose that you feel the need to protect.
Yeah, I never
David.
said that, Jeff. That's a total mischaracterization. And I still don't know why I don't put it out there. I think it's because maybe some part of me, as much as I'm ashamed to admit it, is because I still like very deeply love and care for David. And maybe it's about protecting him.
Casey Neistat does admit shortly after that maybe not the entire reason, but a piece of the puzzle as to why he has yet to release the film might be that deep down he feels bad for David Dobrik.
You said that in the...
That's part of it. And it's a nuanced, like, the hard part with the internet is being honest and being nuanced.
Yeah.
Because people don't want to hear it. They want to take absolutes like that. And that's not an absolute. When I think about that movie, it forces me to confront all of the bullshit that I just expressed. And then that evokes a sense of doubt in me. And this is real. And this is me being honest and me being vulnerable. And this is the same thing I would say to you if none of these cameras were here or anyone that asked me.
Of course.
Like, why isn't it out? And it's like, maybe there is some part that's like, I don't want to have to confront this story. Maybe there's some part of me that feels guilty because the reason why I had that access is because I was their friends. I was David's friend.
Yeah.
And he gave me all this access.
Yeah.
And then in the end, I used it to make a movie that told the truth that he didn't want out there. That's f***ed up. but like, I'm just being honest. Like, there's some tiny bit of doubt in me that thinks maybe the reason why I'm not more aggressive in getting this out there is because of that. Is that me protecting him? If you see it that way, then there's nothing I can do.
I'm just going off words that I actually heard.
I can understand why he would feel that way. I can understand why he's filled with all different sorts of guilt over the situation. But what I cannot understand is how that would stop him from releasing the film to the public, which covers real-world crimes that need to be brought to light. Maybe there's extra details I'm not aware of. There are certainly details I'm not aware of. But from a journalistic standpoint, from an artistic standpoint, I do not respect that decision by Casey Neistat. And Jeff's audience is seemingly on the same page. Calling yourself a journalist while refusing to publish your journalism is bizarre. The role of a journalist is to tell the truth objectively without being influenced by personal biases. You tell the truth even if it's ugly. He interviewed a victim of essay, made her relive the horror just so her story won't be told because he just isn't feeling it. Halfway through the pod and not really keen with Casey. He reminds me of a politician and says whatever he thinks the person in front of him wants to hear to keep the peace. Asking himself questions and answering them is so politician. Holding on to this footage for 3 years now, while at the same time explaining in interviews that the reason it's not out is due in part to the fact that you kind of feel bad for David, is just not a good look. I don't know what else to say. It's just not at all admirable, especially coming from someone claiming to be doing journalism, someone I looked up to. Say what you will about the whole situation, but I personally don't think it's the worst of it. I've looked up to Casey off and on for a decade at this point, and while many of these things I was able to look past or find an explanation for in my head, this last subject is what really made me change my mind entirely on Casey Neistat and change the way I see all of his past doings. The way he talks about Palestine.
That charter makes it clear it's not about land. It's not about helping the people of Palestine live prosperous or happy lives. It is about Jews. These are not freedom fighters. They're racist murderers.
It's now been a year and a half since the initial October 7 attack, which was not at all the beginning of this conflict, but was an event that certainly accelerated what Israel had been doing for nearly a century. Casey Neistat is without a doubt not a political person, at least on the internet. He's made a very successful career for himself for that reason. I mean, the last time he tried to make some political statement, he got absolutely dunked on, albeit by some of the least respected people on the internet, but still. It wasn't pretty.
Casey Neistat is a very popular YouTuber who made a video a couple days ago.
Hillary Clinton. I will be voting for Hillary Clinton.
Casey endorsed Hillary with such gusto, he basically fucked her in the ass and gave her a reach around. I mean, he went full service for her, which is fine. And frankly, I even respect it a little bit because I know it can be so divisive and difficult to talk about politics. So it's cool that he did that, and I respect that. But towards the end of the video, he gets into this whole thing about how we're all morally obligated to vote for Hillary. And he even goes as far as to telling people to ask their favorite creators on YouTube to get a spine and backbone and make sure that we all vote for Hillary.
I want to end this by calling out all the big YouTubers. Some I know and some you viewers might know. See, making videos like this, they're not popular, they're not going to get you subscribers, they're not going to boost your view counts. But there is something much more valuable than subscribers or dollars, and that's backbone.
Kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
That all changed after October 7, when 4 days after the fact, on October 11th, Casey Neistat released a video with a one-word title.
Ready? Look at this guy. Look at the guy in red. Check out the hair. That's me in Israel, I think in Jerusalem, in 2005. If you're Jewish, you get to go on this free trip called Birthright Israel. It's fun. It's like summer camp. You go to Israel with a bunch of people your age and you get to do cool stuff and learn. It's like a field trip. It's great.
Israel is an ethno-colonial project. And that free trip that every Jewish person gets to go on in hopes that they decide to live in Israel or even better fall in love with an attractive IDF soldier, like what happened with Ethan and Neela, was just a fun summer camp for Casey Neistat.
Neistat now is targeting Birthright in a campaign urging the group to, in its words, tell the truth about the Israeli occupation.
Welcome to the 2018 Time to Meet Birthright Israel Summer Mega Event!
Birthright is a program that was started in the 90s as a response to rising rates of intermarriage. Birthright is one of the main sources of information about Israel for my generation of young Jews.
We don't really know much about Israel until you come here.
And the Israel that Birthright portrays is an Israel that is really only half the truth.
Such a kind and welcoming place.
At least 8 foreign Jews who are anti-occupation advocates have come forward with stories of intimidation, harassment, or interrogation over their political views.
You immediately feel there's something here for you. Something unexplainable, like at home.
The Israeli Arabs have described it as a racist law that borders on apartheid.
Birthright has an explicitly right-wing political agenda.
It's up to you to be our soldiers abroad, ready to lobby governments and sway public opinion in Israel's favor.
It feels like the equivalent of going to the Jim Crow South during segregation and not talking about segregation.
6 activists, joined by 2 other Birthright participants, staged a protest walkout.
My name is Corinne Kersey.
My name is Rebecca Oliver.
My name is Risa Nagel.
My name is Hallie.
My name is Sarah Fadum.
And I just walked off my Birthright trip.
What it's really doing is hiding the occupation from young American Jews like myself.
I couldn't just sit back.
Asking questions, seeking out the truth, to me, this is a very strong part of my Jewish identity.
What we are trying to do is to say to our community and to Birthright, we deserve the truth.
If you're Jewish, you get to go on this free trip called Birthright Israel. It's fun. It's like summer camp. You go to Israel with a bunch of people your age and you get to do cool stuff and learn. It's like a field trip. It's great. It's like summer camp. It's like a field trip. It's great.
Have y'all seen the movie Zone of Interest? I think that comparison speaks for itself.
I'm not religious at all, but I'm Jewish. I'm a very proud Jew. And I've always been aware of my Jewishness. When I was a little kid, it was holidays at Nana's house. I was going to synagogue on holidays because that meant I got to skip school. When I was a little bit older, like maybe when I was a teenager, I remember Steven Spielberg's epic movie Schindler's List coming out. And I remember very specifically watching that movie, understanding that film was like a very true to life depiction of things that actually happened here on planet Earth. A graphic, in your face representation of the Holocaust. And I remember watching that movie and thinking why didn't the Jews just stop being Jewish so they wouldn't get shot? I didn't understand then that to be a Jew, that's your ethnicity. And to hate someone because they're Jewish is not to hate a people based on their actions or their politics or who they choose as their God, but it's to hate them because of who they are. And watching that movie, even as a kid, I never understood why the bad guys hated them so much. It made no sense to me. And I'm older now and maybe just slightly less naive, but to hate a people just because of who they are still doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. And look, the situation in the Middle East is complicated, and to call it complicated is a wild oversimplification.
I love when people call the Israel-Palestine conflict a complicated situation. There's nothing complicated about it. You know what? Instead of me explaining it, here's the late great Michael Brooks giving his explanation for the simplicity of the conflict.
As someone with a Jewish background,
yes,
how do you feel about Bernie's plan for Israel, especially as someone concerned with foreign policy?
I love it. It's absolutely necessary. My Jewish values teach me to oppose apartheid.
Are you not concerned about the binary between either condemning Israel entirely, being also a stance that a lot of very strong and notorious anti-Semitic people agree with, versus seeing this as more of a complex issue where it is wrong what's going on and there's also a way to do this that Israel still exists and is supported?
So it's not a complex issue. That's the big thing. It's super simple. There's one group that has enormous power. It's the most powerful country in the Middle East. It's backed by the United States. It acts on another population of people with total impunity and is never held accountable for anything. So there's no symmetry in the relationship, period. And just as like a thought experiment, IDW people, if we know that if somehow a population of Jewish refugees ended up in West Bank and Gaza, and an Arabic government in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv had an open-air prison in Jewish Gaza, which they bombed with white phosphorus, they killed civilians indiscriminately, and they had no provisions for medicine. They had an embargo that blocked food, that electricity wasn't running, that there was an over 48% unemployment rate, life expectancy and malnutrition statistics were horrifying. One of the major policymakers in this hypothetical Arabic Palestinian state said, we need to put those Jews on a diet. In the West Bank, there was another Jewish area where there was a little bit more autonomy, but there was regular Arabic settlements where they pulled up the Jewish farmers' foods, they terrorized them with rocks, the security forces broke children's bones, and they couldn't drive their own roads. We'd all have no problem understanding what that was. So there's nothing complex about it.
It's a conflict that's thousands of years old. It's a conflict you can read about in the Bible. The Romans fought over Jerusalem. The First World War, the Balfour Declaration, the Second World War, 1948, 1967, 1973, 1982, and on and on. It's nuanced, it's complicated, and despite the world's very best efforts for peace, no one seems to be able to figure it out. I certainly don't understand it. It is too complicated for me.
I find it incredibly funny that this dude is married to a white South African, yet thinks something as simple and straightforward as apartheid is too complicated to figure out a solution for. Like, dude, you already figured it out decades ago.
What's not complicated, though, is what happened last Saturday, when members of Hamas set out on a mission with a singular goal to kill as many Jews as possible. They murdered, mutilated, kidnapped Jewish women, grandmas, kids, and entire families. And look, war has existed for all of human history, and all war is violence. There's not much morality in any of it. But there's a reason why history singles out the truly reprehensible. And when it comes to walking door to door, shooting families in their homes, or killing 260 young people at an electronic dance music festival, a lot of those 260 innocent young people were shot in the back as they were running away. Or kidnapping a young woman, violently raping her, and then parading her through the streets to cheering crowds. Or finding out yesterday, a confirmed report that about 40 dead babies were discovered. Some of them still in their cribs.
This rumor about 40 dead babies got a lot of motion post-October 7. So much so that Sleepy Joe himself made the claim at a press conference, not only claiming that it happened, but claiming that he saw the evidence.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children.
It's honestly scary that Casey Neistat reiterates how this was a confirmed report, when in absolutely no sense of the word was the crime confirmed. It was simply a rumor spread by I-24, a prominent news channel in Israel.
There's no moral equivalency here. There's no yeah, but. There's no justifying that kind of barbarism because of a cause. It is horror and demonic and the very worst that humans, any humans, are capable of.
Yes, any violence against civilians is unacceptable. But without analysis of the situation, the power structure at hand between an oppressed apartheid state and those being oppressed, the only conclusion that you can come to is these Arabs are anti-Semitic.
I'm making this video not because I'm the best person to deliver this information. Read the news if you want to know what's going on. I do not have a deep understanding of the geopolitical situation in the Middle East or some naive answer to a conflict that is thousands of years old. And despite this awesome t-shirt that I have on, I'm not here to give the peace sign and say, can't we all just get along? I'm making this video to be as vocal as possible and calling out anti-Semitism when I see it. Anti-Semitism, that is to hate Jewish people simply because of who they are, Jewish. Wanting peace for Palestinians, that's not anti-Semitic. Questioning or criticizing the Israeli government or its leaders for their actions, that is not inherently anti-Semitic. That's an important dialogue that everyone concerned should be engaged in. But what happened Saturday was not motivated by a desire for land or freedom or any political agenda. It was about Jews.
The people of Palestine who escaped Gaza were not motivated by their hatred of Jewish people. They were motivated by their hatred of whichever people were on the other side of that fence. Had they been Russian, German, Turkish, they would have committed the same atrocities. This is a people who have tried every action under the sun to achieve prosperity and self-determination, and failure after failure had only one more option. But to Casey Neistat, these people are evil, vile, scum of the earth, and only want one thing in this world: to end the lives of Jewish people. You know what? Here's Norm Finkelstein explaining how his parents, who lived in the Warsaw Ghetto, felt about German people.
And then your other expert seems to believe that they need textbooks to incite them to hate Israelis. I got news for you, sir. My parents were in the concentration camps. My parents did not need Jewish textbooks to convince them to hate Germans. It was their real life experience that convinced them.
All right, back to the malarkey.
Hamas, the perpetrators of that violence, Hamas has a singular mission, and they're not secretive about it. You can read Hamas's charter. It's online. You got to dig around, but you can find it online. And that charter makes it clear. It's not about land. It's not about helping the people of Palestine live prosperous or happy lives. It is about Jews. These are not freedom fighters. They're racist murderers. The day of judgment will not come about until fight Jews and kill them. Then the Jews will hide behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees will cry out, "There's a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him." That is a poorly translated but direct quote from the Hamas charter, a publicly stated goal of the murderers.
We're 1.5 years into this genocide. I really don't think I have to explain how idiotic this statement is. The actions of Hamas on October 7 were quite literally point-blank period motivated by a desire for freedom. Let me explain this from a simple context we can all understand. Casey is not lying about the Hamas charter. It does say those things, but it is not anti-Semitic to hate your oppressor who just so happens to be Jewish. Let me explain. During the times of chattel slavery in the United States, people from Western Africa were kidnapped to work on plantations in the South. We all know the story. And for about 300 years, black people universally understood white people to be their oppressor. If those slaves were to come together, form a makeshift army, and write up a charter, they would without a doubt write about their singular goal to achieve freedom through the of white people. Does this mean they're racist against white people? No. But even if you do believe that, answer me this. Do they want to kill white people because they are white? Not in the slightest. They want to kill white people because they are being oppressed by white people. Were there white people in the US at the time who were completely against the concept of slavery? 100%. But the only white people slaves ever knew were the ones they were forced to work under for generations. I can't even believe I have to explain this.
So when I see on social media, especially by posts by people that I know, attempts at justifying the acts of these savages by equivocating it.
Did bro really just use the word savages? The slaves who revolted during the Nat Turner Rebellion, who killed their slave master and his entire family, were they savages? I shouldn't even ask this question, because Casey would probably say yes.
So-called activists rushing to say that there are reasons why it's okay that those families were murdered. Or people who can look at a video of a girl being pulled out of a truck with blood pouring from her pants after she's been gang raped and say all resistance is justified. My question is, like, on what grounds do you make such claims? Have you no humanity? Can you not separate the desire for peace or land or whatever your goals might be from these heinous acts? Like, where do you have to go in your brain before you can stop seeing the murder of babies in their cribs as just that, murders of babies and instead see it as just. It is incomprehensible to me.
This dude is a millionaire living in the imperial core. Of course you don't understand. Okay, I can't watch any more of this garbage. I'm gonna give the floor to Hassan just to finish it up.
The people who marched the day after the attacks holding up a sign that read, "By any means necessary." Really? Any means? Of course, there are innocent Palestinian victims out there who need support, who need a voice. But Hamas, the people who committed these barbaric acts, they're not serving those people. That's not their...
Ugh, I hate the liberal Zionist take of like, yeah, the innocent Palestinians deserve more than Hamas. It's like, okay, well then abolish the apartheid. Like, the major actor here is Israel. Anyway.
Goal. Their mission is singular, and it's to kill people because of who they are, because they're Jewish.
Yeah, totally.
And look, I know a lot of folks are scared to speak up or speak out in support of their Jewish friends because it's a complicated situation. Nobody wants to say the wrong thing. But know that Jewish people, know that your Jewish friends, when they see scenes like this, that's a large group of people chanting "Gas the Jews" in Sydney, Australia, like 2 days ago.
That literally wasn't that like a fucking random group of people and then they immediately got dealt with by the protesters? Yeah, there's opportunists. That was confirmed fake. Oh, that was actually just straight up debunked. I thought it was like a bunch of random dudes that showed up, opportunists. It doesn't seem too complicated for Casey Neistat. Like, he keeps saying it's complicated, but it doesn't seem to be that complicated. He's saying that the Palestinians are barbaric monsters, or the Hamas is barbaric monsters, and, you know, they're operating simply on anti-Semitism as like their overarching reason. Why would that be complicated then? This is what I do not understand.
What hurts Jewish people more than those scenes is when non-Jews are silent, when their peers are too afraid to speak out against that kind of blatant hatred, that kind of blatant anti-Semitism. All right.
And obviously, if you were paying attention to the actions of Israel, you would fucking know, regardless, that Israel was about to do some unconscionable shit. The problem, however, is that many who defend Israel always refuse to pay attention to what Israel does. That's the problem. And he has not done a follow-up since then.
Casey Neistat's brother, Van Neistat, also made a video after October 7, and somehow his takes in that video were even more brain dead than his brother's.
I came up with the idea for this episode last February. Over the past 2 weeks or so, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and accounts of the October 7th terrorist attacks on Israel. I've seen the footage of the anti-Semitic chants and rallies from around the world, especially on college campuses. At a very young age, I was warned that these things would one day come again. I see the explicit anti-Semitism, and I and others who know Jews or are Jews, we're astonished by anti-Semitism because it makes no sense. In the face of the contributions Jews have made to our civilization, and in the face of the consequences that we know Jew hating leads to, it makes no sense that kids in Australia and England and in the United States are rallying against Jews. So why? Why do people hate Jews?
Yeah, let's show some videos of pro-Palestine protests and a girl wearing a hijab and claim they're rallying against Jews. How stupid do you have to be to make such a claim? Ironically, this itself is an anti-Semitic statement. By claiming that anti-Israel protests are somehow anti-Jewish, you're conflating the crimes of Israel with the teachings of Judaism, two things that could not be more opposed to one another.
Thomas Sowell says that hostility towards Jews is beyond all proportion to any other group that he can think of. Soul says the reason for the hatred is because Jews succeed in a way that is a threat to the egos of other people. Historically, immigrant Jews, wherever they've gone, started out with nothing and arose to tremendous success.
Thomas Sowell. I love this guy. Famed economist who's frequently quoted by racists and anti-Semites alike, like Candace Owens, for example.
Weak, unsuccessful people see that rise, and they hate the successful Jews for it because it's easier than hating themselves, who, especially in this country, are the actual ones responsible for their own lack of success.
Americans are responsible for their own lack of success? This is the greatest bootlicking I've heard escape the mouth of a Neistat, and that's saying something. But alas, this video is about Casey Neistat, and as much as I'd love to watch this video in full and dissect his every word, I have a life and need to get on with this video. Casey Neistat never made a follow-up to his original video, even after months of Israel's disproportionate response to October 7, what is now quite obviously seen as a genocide of the Palestinian people. Instead, he doubled down, and 1 month after October 7, decided to wear a hat with the Israeli flag on it while he ran the New York City Marathon. 1 month after that, he wore the same hat in another marathon, this time turning it backwards. Wow, so brave. He then went silent for the next few months, as bombs continued to drop on Gaza at an unimaginable scale. It wasn't until April 2024 when Casey Neistat decided once again to take a stand, not against the atrocious actions of Israel, but against the college students protesting said actions.
As Israel's assault on Gaza enters its 200th day, Palestinian solidarity protests and encampments are spreading on college campuses across the United States, inspired by the Gaza Solidarity encampment at Columbia University. Here in New York, police raided a student encampment at New York University Monday night. Police arrested more than 150 people, including students and 20 faculty members. Earlier on Monday, police at Yale University arrested 60 protesters, including 47 students who'd set up an encampment to demand the school divest from weapons manufacturers. At Columbia, the student encampment has entered its 7th day.
The president's decision to send riot police to pick up peaceful protesters on our campus was unprecedented, unjustified, disproportionate, divisive, and dangerous.
Student encampments are now in place at numerous other schools, including University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, University of California, Berkeley, University of Maryland, MIT, and Emerson College in Boston.
In April of 2024, protests sprung up all over the United States, specifically at universities, with the goal of divestment, getting the universities to walk back their investments in Israeli companies and companies operating in Israel in the occupied West Bank of Palestine. These weren't just any protests. The reason they became so controversial was due to their permanence in the form of encampments. Starting at Columbia University in Manhattan, students set up tents, medical stations, food stands, with the purpose of making this protest the final protest. After Columbia's encampment was subsequently shut down, students suspended, and then the camp returning even stronger and greater than before, these university encampments began appearing all across the United States. I graduated from college just a few months earlier, but I visited the University of Minnesota's encampment a few times, and the energy was great. Actually, the University of Minnesota encampment had a similar story to Columbia's. It was small at first, the students were almost immediately arrested, and the next day the encampment returned, significantly larger, and with a greater student body than the day previous. There was an energy in the air unlike anything I had ever experienced. Not only were students protesting, but faculty also joined in at various schools across the nation to show support for their students who were upholding their First Amendment right to protest unjustifiable warfare and genocide in Gaza. Unfortunately, this energy only lasted so long. Students in Austin were subject to brutal arrests, as were students in California. Some students continued the fight and were able to occupy buildings for days. But that too came to a close. At UCLA, a mob of Zionists were the ones inflicting violence upon the student protesters. With no police in sight, not until the Zionist mob left did the police finally show up, and subsequently shut down the encampment.
As we broadcast this morning, Los Angeles police and riot gear are dismantling a pro-Palestinian encampment on UCLA's campus after hundreds of police used flashbang grenades, rubber bullets, and tear gas in a face-off with protesters who chanted, "We're not leaving, you don't scare us." The police raid at UCLA came a day after pro-Israel counter-protesters attacked the encampment with fireworks, metal rods, and tear gas for hours late Tuesday night and into early Wednesday morning. At least 15 people were injured. This is how UCLA's student newspaper, the Daily Bruin, described the violence instigated by counter-protesters in an editorial. Quote, "It began with ear-piercing screams of wailing babies loudly emitting from speakers, counter-protesters tearing down the barricades, laser pointers flashing into the encampment, people in masks waving strobe lights, tear gas, pepper spray, violent beatings. Fireworks sparked at the border of the encampment, raining down on tents and the individuals inside," the Daily Bruin wrote. The editorial noted Los Angeles police did not arrive until slightly after 1 a.m. Meanwhile, around 3:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, 4 UCLA student journalists were attacked by the pro-Israel counter-protesters on campus. One of the journalists was treated for injuries at the hospital and has since been released. There were no arrests after Tuesday night's attack. Wednesday's classes were canceled. The Daily Bruin's editorial ended with a question, quote, "Will someone have to die on our campus tonight for you to intervene, Gene Block? The blood would be on your hands."
So for Casey Neistat, having resided in New York City for some time, these protests must have hit close to home. I mean, his studio was a mere few miles from the Columbia encampment, and Casey had yet to comment on the actions of Israel over the past months. So this was the perfect opportunity for him to come out in support of these students, using their voices for good. Right? I mean, he makes videos. Why not go travel down to Columbia University and make a video about the encampments? That'd be cool, right? Casey Neistat used this opportunity to go to Instagram to post this photo with the caption reading, "Protest the war. It's your right. But death to America? Death to the Jews? You can f*** right off with that. Discrimination against an entire ethnic group because of the actions of a country 6,000 miles away is un-American and unconscionable." Right. Clearly, Casey is unaware that a huge chunk of these student protesters are Jewish themselves. Many of these encampments were orchestrated by Jewish groups, like Jewish Voice for Peace. Yet here he is, continuing to make this about himself, claiming that these protesters want death to Jews? Are you kidding me? And my God, the American flag hanging behind him? That's just the cherry on top. You are not based for this take. You are simply demonstrating the delusions of people who conflate Israel with Judaism. You are quite literally doing the thing you are arguing against. So this was in April, and a whole shit ton more death and destruction has taken place since then, and Casey has yet to make any statement critical of the Israeli government, which isn't very surprising at this point. Because the reason I'm making this video is because Casey Neistat made an appearance on a podcast recently. The same podcast where Casey defended David Dobrik, the same podcast that made Jeff Wittick confront Casey Neistat in the first place, was the podcast that made me want to make this video. Towards the end of this interview, their conversation was interrupted by a protest taking place outside his studio on Broadway running through Lower Manhattan. And can you guess what the people on the street were protesting?
What's your relationship like with David Dobrik now?
It's non-existent. I think that, when the movie was done, I showed it to him. He's not happy with it. And that's it. I made it clear to him that if he ever wants to reach out, I'm still the same person and I'm always here and available. But that's kind of where things lie.
Yeah. And then last.
What in God's name is happening outside of my office? Some sort of protest. Come on, man, I gotta get out there.
There's a protest outside. I mean, we hear a lot of the noise.
So what do you think is the appropriate response to this? Maybe he'll go down to street level and interview the protesters, or at least have a conversation with one of them? Maybe he'll just show his support and yell out the window in agreement with the protesters. I'm naive. I don't know what he's gonna do. Let's see what he does.
It's always something in this city. I think that was some sort of pro-Palestine march. They like to go down Broadway. You gotta show the love, you know? All right. One more question?
It's actually about that.
Okay, let's get into it.
Yep. He goes and grabs his Israeli flag, which for some reason he just has on hand, hanging up at its designated spot in his office, and waves it out the window. What a horrible, I mean just brain-dead human being. Let's see how he justifies this. How he justifies counter-protesting a protest against genocide. I mean, seemingly, he's pro-genocide. Let's see how he justifies it.
Can you just explain what happened there?
Yeah, so that was like a anti-Israel march going down Broadway. And, you know, when that happens, I like to wave either my American flag or an Israeli flag or some combination of both.
Why? He likes to wave his American flag or Israeli flag or both? What's the point of that? He's quite literally just anti-Palestine at this point.
How do you think about your platform and speaking out about that, given how polarizing it is?
Well, I think it's challenging, and I've never been one to hold my tongue, and I think that exasperates, for me, sort of the frustration in speaking out against anti-Semitism, because, you know, long before I spoke out against anti-Semitism, I was quick to speak out, you know, for pro-LGBTQ rights, and I was very loud in speaking out in my support of African Americans and why it's important that you know, we stand up if there's a moment in this country where like our fellow Black Americans are feeling like they're being unfairly treated. I've never held my tongue. So when it becomes about anti-Semitism, you know, for me, it's certainly different, because I think everyone is able to truly understand prejudiceness through which the lens they experience it. I'm no idea what it's like. I can imagine, but I have no idea what it's like to be Black in a place where somebody might be judging you because of the color of your skin. I don't know that. But I know what it's like to be treated differently because I'm Jewish. So it's unique to me, and I feel like I can speak on that in a different way.
The classic liberal Zionist, the most annoying of them all. Oh, I've supported Black Lives Matter. I've supported LGBTQ rights. How could I stand idly by and not stand up against this anti-Semitism? In what way is a pro-Palestine march anti-Semitic? Oh, because they're anti-Israel? Israel is the antithesis of Judaism. How can people not understand this? I guarantee you, this is New York City, I guarantee you a group of Hasidic Jews were participating in that march because they understand how Israel has no right calling themselves the one and only Jewish state while literally committing genocide against a people group. Oh, but they're anti-Semitic too, right?
What's really challenging is that I do support Israel, and I love Israel, and I've been there, and I love Israelis. I don't understand Israeli politics.
Yeah, no shit. You clearly don't understand Israeli politics. So maybe don't speak on it.
You know, I don't, if you say Netanyahu's a bad guy, okay. Like, I think that we've had really bad presidents too. I think we have a lot of bad leaders in this country. Criticize them. If you say I don't like the way that Israel is prosecuting a war, I say, okay, I'm not a general. That's fair. I don't like the way that we marched into Iraq. I don't like reading about the shit that we did in Vietnam. That's fair. Criticize that. If you say that Palestinians deserve dignity and rights in their own country, I say, hell yeah, they do. Hell yeah, they do. Like, Palestinians deserve all of that.
Casey, that's what the people on the street are protesting. You're literally agreeing with them, yet you stick your head out the window in opposition. You look down on them.
You know, one of my lab mates at MIT was from Gaza. Love the guy, but I also support Israel. And I think what's so complicated and so frustrating about this conversation is that you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to say that I want innocent people that live in Palestine to not be suffering, and I want them to have good lives. But I also believe, I don't just believe, I'm convicted in the fact that Israel has every right to exist, and that when attacked, Israel has every right to protect itself and to fight back. And those two things you're not allowed to say those two things.
You're saying it right now, bro. You're saying it, and you're still a millionaire. What you're actually not allowed to say is that you want self-determination for Palestinians without being called an anti-Semite for wanting it. That is what you're not allowed to say.
In the same way that you're not allowed to say, like, you know, I think the Democrats are doing some stupid stuff that I don't appreciate, but I also think that the Republicans are dipshits for doing stupid stuff that I don't appreciate. I don't like the way that the Democrats handle some criminal justice reform, because I think you're letting too many criminals out.
What did I just hear? Casey Neistat is now coming out and taking a stand against criminal justice reform? He wants less people to experience freedom after serving their time and being rehabilitated? Who is this guy? I hate liberals.
I can say that about the Democrats. I don't like that the Republicans, the way that they address women's reproductive rights. I can say that about both sides, but you're not allowed to say that. And you're not allowed to say that you think that there are good people in Palestine and that you support the state of Israel. If I went down there and tried to say that to those people screaming, marching down the street, they would not be receptive to that conversation. And that is really hard.
Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder why going down on the street and confronting people while you hold the flag of the oppressor, I wonder why that would cause violence.
It's really hard because I'm not down there on the street having this conversation with 20 people. I'm on the internet saying it to 1 million people. And it's really hard. It's super hard to have that conversation, and it's frustrating. So it's not hard to speak up. It's hard to try to reconcile that we can't be civil and have an honest conversation about such a volatile, dangerous, personal matter.
How do we start to at least have that conversation?
I don't know, trying my best, you know? I know for me personally that I no longer engage with people that I don't think are willing to hear. I know that I'm very open-minded, and I'm willing to hear whatever it is you have to say, no matter how much I disagree with it. I'm willing to hear your argument. And sometimes people convince me, and I change my perspective. I really do. It's happened a bunch in my life. But you can usually tell in the first heartbeat of meeting someone if they're going to be receptive to hearing, being open-minded. And if they're not, I immediately walk away. Otherwise, I can just stand and argue with that door right there. It's not going to help me. It's going to make me angry and frustrated. I won't lose an ounce of sleep over that. If I was, realistically, there would be violence if I went down there with an Israeli flag. Though they're not, I don't mean to generalize. Perhaps there are people down there that would be willing to engage in conversation. But in my experience, because I go to a lot of counter protests.
Holy shit, I hate liberals. So yeah, Casey Neistat is basically your average millionaire liberal who's moving further and further to the right every day. As the contradictions in his ideology are too difficult for him to ponder, to reconcile with, he drops all courage and sides with the oppressor. The borderline invisible violent system that makes any defense against said violence seem to be the aggressive force. Casey Neistat is someone I used to look incredibly fondly upon, someone I was inspired by to create and share my voice to an online audience. Yet as time passes, Casey Neistat is becoming increasingly unreceptive to that same voice he inspired in so many. And for that reason, I can no longer support Casey Neistat. Peace and love, free Palestine.
Where's the magic gone? Where did it run to? Never thought it'd leave, but I'm left with an emptiness. Won't you tell me where the magic's gone? Well, back when I was young, it was all around. Everywhere I looked, it was there. Now I blankly stare, and I wonder where the magic's gone. And is there a reason why it was leaving? Did I stop believing? maybe one day soon we'll be together again, and the world will come alive right before my eyes.